Beef exports are down, and analysts say that's likely because of higher prices. So what does this mean for 2013? We have more in this week's Market Watch.
Market Watch, brought to you by Pfizer Animal Health.
Here in the studio to give us a quick beef export update is Brett Stuart, market analyst with CattleFax. Brett, thanks for coming back to the show.
Good to be here, Kevin.
Well, after breaking records in 2011, we've seen exports trend down in 2012, and simultaneously we're seeing global population increases and increases in global income. Give us your explanation.
Well, that's a good question, Kevin. You know, we kind of gauge our success, I guess, by our export volumes, and we've seen stair-step year after year export growth. And then we come to a year like this and we see this decline. Through August, the most recent trade data, we're down 12% in volume. But I think the piece that we need to look at is in value. If we look at beef export value, we're actually slightly above a year ago. And so you consider that, we've been talking for years, we're on 4 consecutive years of global beef production declines. And so as we see supplies get tighter, the price goes up. And so looking at where we are here in 2012, we're seeing those tight supplies drive higher prices. It isn't necessarily a cause for concern. We know how tight the supplies are here at home, and what's happened is those tight supplies have just caused people to bid higher prices to get that beef.
Speaking of cause for concern, you know, in 2003 we saw the export market be decimated. Some people suggest that we should be concerned about becoming too dependent on foreign trade. Is that true?
There are some concerns out there, and we've seen it also in the pork side. We look at beef, we export about 10-11% of our production. Pork exports 23%. And those seem high, but you look around the world, Australia exports 80% of their beef production. But it is a concern. I worked for the Meat Export Federation when BSE hit, and it was pretty rough. And the climb back out of that hole has been long and difficult. And so obviously, yeah, that's a concern. But I would take a look at it this way. If you look at the last 4 years, 2008 we start with the recession, and we look at what's happened those past 4 years. U.S. household incomes declined, restaurant spending has been stagnant, consumers have tightened the belt, and here we've had record high cattle prices, all classes of cattle, record high beef prices. And there is no way we could have done that without exports. And so I would twist that argument the other way and say what exports have really done for us. They've helped us reduce risk from our biggest dependency, which is our own market. And so you think about what that means. For example, you look at even looking outside into the export market, 2003 we exported 92% of our beef to 4 markets. We were pretty dependent on single market issues. This year we're going to export 65% of our beef to those same 4 markets. And so we've diversified not only away from the U.S., but we've diversified even out in the world. And you look at what the issues can be, what could happen. We could have, who knows, some kind of media stunt in the U.S. that tries to damage demand for our product. Thank goodness we have exports, and I think the last 4 years are a real testament to the value that those exports have derived for us.
That's helpful insight. And let's talk about one of those markets, Japan. You know, we've heard a lot about it. Are they going to lift their restrictions, and if so, when?
I've been answering that question for 9 years now, and I've been wrong, I think, every time. I'm not very good when it comes to trying to forecast Japanese politicians, I guess. But you look at where we're at, and what's different this time. The regulations that are proposed today were proposed by Japan. They were Japan-driven. And so Japan's moving through their domestic process. And it appears that things are moving in sync with where they should be. The latest news out of Japan is we could hear an announcement on lifting those restrictions possibly by year end. And I guess my best guess scenario today is that we start seeing bigger volumes going into Japan after the first of the year.
Gotcha. Very helpful, and we'll be back to you in December, see how that's going, all right?
Okay.
Thanks for coming to the show, Brett.
Good to be here, Kevin.
For more expert analysis on beef exports, visit CattleFax.com.